This is going to sound crazy. Right now, as you are watching this, preppers across the country are paying double, sometimes triple, for survival foods that you can get for pennies. And I am not talking about some secret military surplus or underground market. I am talking about your regular grocery store. While everyone is panicked buying the same expensive freeze-dried meals and stockpiling overpriced emergency food buckets, there are 11 items sitting on shelves right now that cost half as much, store twice as long, and nobody is fighting over them. If you want to know what those are before they vanish, hit that subscribe button right now, because I am about to share what took me 8 years of trial and error to figure out. Food number 1 is canned butter. I am starting with something that is going to shock you. Canned butter. Not freeze-dried butter powder. Not that weird shelf-stable margarine. Actual real butter in a can. And right now, the price is exploding. 2 years ago, you could get a case of red feather canned butter for about $45. Today, that same case is running $85 to $95, depending on where you look. That is more than double. Here is why this matters. Butter is pure fat, and fat is survival fuel. Your body needs fat for energy, for staying warm, for brain function, for absorbing vitamins. Most prepper foods are dangerously low in fat, but 1 can of this butter provides over 3,000 calories of pure energy. I learned about canned butter from an old-timer who grew up in rural New Zealand, where this stuff has been a staple for over 100 years. Look, grocery prices are rising faster than most people can keep up with. I have done the math for you and put together a free emergency pantry blueprint that lists the exact 15 items you must keep, which you can buy from any store. It can feed your family for 2 weeks and costs less than takeout. You can grab the list for free at the link in description so you can stop worrying and start prepping. Food number 2 is Pemmican ingredients. Number 2 is old school survival food that is making a huge comeback, and the ingredients are getting expensive fast. Pemmican. Now, most people had never heard of this, but Native Americans survived entire winters on it, and Arctic explorers used it because nothing else worked. Pemmican is dried meat mixed with rendered fat. That is it. Sounds simple, but the combination creates the most calorie-dense survival food that exists. 1 pound of pemmican contains about 3,000 calories and can last for decades without refrigeration. Here's the problem. The 2 main ingredients, lean meat and fat, have skyrocketed in price. 2 years ago, I could buy beef trimmings from my local butcher for under $2 a pound. Today, those same trimmings are $5 to $6 a pound. And beef fat, which used to be practically free, now costs $3 to $4 a pound. Making your own pemmican is still way cheaper than buying it. Pre-made pemmican from survival companies runs $40 to $50 per pound. But when you make it yourself, even with today's inflated prices, you're looking at about $12 per pound. Here's how I do it. I buy the cheapest lean beef I can find, usually round or chucked when it is on sale. I slice it thin and dehydrate it until it is completely dry and brittle. Then I grind it into a powder using a food processor. Separately, I render beef fat down into tallow. Once the tallow is liquid, I mix it with the meat powder at about a 1-to-1 ratio. I pack it into mason jars while it is still warm, and when it cools, it solidifies into this dense bar. You can add dried berries for flavor and extra vitamins, but the base recipe is just meat and fat. The shelf life is insane. I have pemmican in my stockpile that is 3 years old. Stored at room temperature, still perfect. Some historical accounts talk about pemmican lasting 50 years or more. This is the ultimate bug-out food because it is lightweight, requires no cooking, and provides maximum calories per ounce. If you have not started making pemmican yet, do it now before meat prices climb even higher. Food number 3 is ghee from Indian markets. All right. Number 3 is something I discovered by accident that has completely changed my stockpiling strategy. Ghee from Indian grocery stores. Not the fancy organic ghee from Whole Foods that costs $18 a jar. I am talking about the big containers of ghee at Indian markets that cost $10 for twice the amount. Here is what is happening. As word has gotten out about ghee being shelf-stable for years, preppers have started buying it. The problem is most preppers are going to regular grocery stores and paying premium prices. Meanwhile, Indian markets are fully stocked with ghee, because it is a daily staple in Indian cooking, and they order it in bulk. A few months ago, I walked into an Indian market and saw 5-pound tubs of ghee for $25. That same amount at my regular grocery store would have cost $75. Same product, same quality, one-third the price. Ghee is clarified butter, which means all the milk solids have been removed. This is what makes it shelf-stable. It cannot go rancid because there is nothing in it to spoil. I keep ghee in my pantry at room temperature, and it has been sitting there for over 2 years with zero issues. The flavor actually improves with age. Here is why you need this in your stockpile. In a long-term situation where you're eating mostly grains and vegetables, your body will crave fat. Ghee provides it in a form that is easy to digest and incredibly versatile. You can cook with it, spread it on bread, stir it into rice, or even eat it straight for quick energy. Indian markets often have sales where ghee drops even lower in price. I bought 6 tubs during Diwali last year at 30% off. Now I have years of cooking fat stored for less than $150 total. The key is to buy it in the original containers, which are usually food-grade plastic or metal tins designed for long-term storage. No need to repackage. Just keep them cool and dry. While other preppers are spending ridiculous money on freeze-dried fats and expensive oils that go rancid, I've got literal years of ghee waiting in my pantry for a fraction of the cost. Food number 4 is whole dried chickpeas. Number 4 is a food that has been quietly doubling in price, and most preppers are missing it completely. Whole dried chickpeas. Knocking chickpeas dried. And here's the kicker. These are not your average beans. Chickpeas pack way more protein than standard beans, about 20 grams per cup cooked, and they are loaded with fiber, iron, and folate. But the best part is that chickpeas are incredibly versatile. I learned this from a Middle Eastern friend who grew up eating them daily. You can boil them like regular beans, roast them for a crunchy snack, grind them into flour for baking, or mash them into hummus. One bag of dried chickpeas can become 10 different meals. Here is what is happening with pricing. 3 years ago, a 5-pound bag of dried chickpeas cost about $5. Last month, I paid $11 for the same bag. That is more than double, and the trend is not slowing down. Global chickpea production has been hit by droughts in major growing regions, and demand has increased as more people go plant-based. Supply is tightening and prices are reflecting that. Despite the increase, chickpeas are still one of the best deals in survival food. Compare $11 for a 5-pound of chickpeas, which gives you about 30 servings of protein-packed food, to freeze-dried meals at $15 per serving. The math is obvious. The storage is simple. Keep them in airtight containers or Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. Dried chickpeas last for years. Some say up to 10 years when stored properly. I keep about 50 pounds in my stockpile, organized in 5-gallon buckets. That is enough to feed my family for months. Here's a survival hack I learned. If you sprout chickpeas, you multiply the nutrition. Sprouting increases vitamin C, makes the protein more digestible, and gives you fresh greens in a situation where fresh vegetables are impossible to get. Soak them overnight, drain, and let them sit in a jar. In 3 days, you got sprouts. The fact that most preppers are still focused on rice and beans while ignoring chickpeas is actually good for us. It means they are still available. But grab them now before more people catch on. Food number 5 is coconut oil in bulk. Number 5 is something I have been stockpiling aggressively because the price has gone absolutely insane. Coconut oil, but you have to buy it in bulk to get a decent price. Here's what happened. 5 years ago, you could get a gallon of coconut oil for about $20. Today, that same gallon is $45 to $50 depending on the brand. That is more than double, and in some cases, triple the original price. Why is coconut oil critical for preppers? Because it is one of the few oils that is truly shelf-stable. Most vegetable oils go rancid within a year, even when unopened. But coconut oil, because it is mostly saturated fat, lasts for years without going bad. I have jars in my stockpile that are 4 years old, and they are still perfect. Coconut oil solidifies at room temperature, which actually helps preserve it. When it is solid, oxidation slows down dramatically. This means you do not need refrigeration. You do not need special storage. Just keep it in a cool, dark place, and it will outlast almost everything else. Here is the insider move. Do not buy coconut oil at regular grocery stores. Go to restaurant supply stores or buy directly from bulk suppliers online. I found a supplier that sells coconut oil in 5-gallon buckets for $120. That is 640 ounces, compared to paying $15 for a 14-ounce jar at the grocery store, which would cost you over $600 for the same amount. The versatility of coconut oil is off the charts. You can cook with it, use it as a moisturizer, make soap, use it for oil lamps, and even use it for wound care because it has natural antibacterial properties. In a survival situation, this is a multi-use item, which means every ounce is pulling double or triple duty. I keep 3 5-gallon buckets in my storage. That is 15 gallons total, enough to last my family for years. And because I bought it in bulk, I paid a fraction of what other preppers are paying. Here's a tip. If you buy in bulk, portion some into smaller jars for daily use and keep the rest sealed. This minimizes exposure to air and extends a life even further. Food number 6 is Masa harina. All right, number 6 is a food that nobody is talking about, and the price is starting to creep up. Masa harina, which is corn flour treated with lime. This is what tortillas are made from, and it is a survival food staple in Latin America. Here is why this is genius. Masa harina has been nixtamalized, which is a process where corn is soaked in lime water. This does 2 things. It increases the nutritional value, especially niacin and calcium, and it makes the corn easier to digest. Regular cornmeal does not do this, which is why Masa harina is nutritionally superior. The price used to be dirt cheap. A 4-pound bag was about $4. Now, that same bag is $8 to $10, depending on the brand. That is a significant jump, and it is happening because more people are discovering how good this stuff is. Here is what makes Masa harina perfect for prepping. You can make tortillas with just Masa harina, water, and a pinch of salt. No yeast, no rising time, no complicated process. Mix it, flatten it, cook it on a hot pan. 3 minutes, and you have got bread. In a grid-down situation where electricity is out and ovens do not work, this is game-changing. But you can also use Masa harina to thicken soups, make tamales, or even make a hot cereal similar to oatmeal. 1 bag provides dozens of meals. The shelf life is solid. Stored in an airtight container, Masa harina lasts 2 to 3 years easily. Some people vacuum seal it with oxygen absorbers and claim 5 years or more. I keep about 20 bags in my stockpile. Even at a higher price, that is less than $200 for a huge amount of versatile, nutritious food. Compare that to the pre-packaged emergency bread mixes that cost $12 for a single loaf. Here's a pro tip. Buy directly from Mexican grocery stores. They usually have better prices than mainstream stores, and the quality is often higher because they are selling to customers who actually know the product. This is authentic stuff, not the watered-down version. While everyone else is fighting over wheat flour that goes bad in a year, I have got years of tortilla-making power sitting in my pantry for a fraction of the cost. Food number 7 is canned mackerel. Number 7 is a protein source that is exploding in price, but it is still cheaper than almost every other option. Canned mackerel. Not canned tuna, mackerel. Here is the difference. Mackerel is one of the fattiest fish you can get, which means it is packed with omega-3 fatty acids and way more calories than tuna. A can of mackerel has about 300 calories and 45 grams of protein. Compare that to tuna, which has about 100 calories and 20 grams of protein. Mackerel gives you 3 times the energy. Here is what is happening. 2 years ago, canned mackerel was about $1.50 per can. Now it is $3 to $4 per can. That is double. But even at $4, it is still one of the best protein deals you can find. Canned chicken costs $5 or more per can, and freeze-dried meat costs $20 for a single pouch. The shelf life of canned mackerel is incredible. Most cans are good for 5 years, but I have personally eaten cans that were 7 years old with 0 issues. As long as the can is not damaged and stored properly, it lasts way beyond the printed date. Here's how I use it. Straight out of the can on crackers, mix into rice for extra protein and fat, mashed up with mayo for sandwiches, or added to soups for flavor and nutrition. One can transform a boring meal into something filling. The other advantage is that mackerel is low on the food chain, which means it is low in mercury compared to tuna. You can eat it more frequently without worrying about heavy metal buildup. I stock about 100 cans in my pantry. Even at $4 per can, that is $400 for a massive amount of shelf-stable protein and fat. That is enough to feed my family protein-rich meals for months. The key is to buy in bulk when you find sale. I hit up discount grocery stores and ethnic markets where fish is cheaper. Last month, I found a case of mackerel at an Asian market for $2.50 per can, which is a steal compared to mainstream stores. Do not sleep on this. As more preppers figure out how good mackerel is, the price is only going to keep climbing. Food number 8 is vinegar in bulk. Number 8 is something most preppers completely overlook, but it is critical, and the price has been steadily increasing. Vinegar in bulk, specifically white distilled vinegar and apple cider vinegar. Here is what most people do not realize. Vinegar is not just for cooking. It is a preservation tool, a cleaning agent, a disinfectant, and even a medicinal item. In a long-term survival situation, vinegar is one of those multi-use items that becomes invaluable. The price has crept up significantly. A gallon of white vinegar used to cost about $2. Now, it is $4 to $5. Apple cider vinegar has jumped even more, from $5 a gallon to $10 or more. That is double across the board. Here is why you need this. First, food preservation. You can pickle vegetables with vinegar, extend their shelf life for months or even years. In a situation where fresh food is scarce, being able to preserve a harvest is critical. Second, cleaning. Vinegar cuts grease, disinfects surfaces, and can even be used for laundry. When commercial cleaners run out, vinegar keeps you going. Third, health. Apple cider vinegar has been used for centuries for digestive issues, sore throats, and even wound care. I am not saying it is a cure-all, but having it on hand gives you options. The shelf life of vinegar is technically indefinite. Because of its high acidity, bacteria cannot grow in it. I have vinegar in my stockpile that is 5 years old, and it is still just as potent as the day I bought it. Here's my strategy. I buy vinegar in gallon jugs whenever I see it on sale. I keep white vinegar for cleaning and preserving, and apple cider vinegar for health and cooking. I have about 20 gallons total stored in my basement. Even at today's prices, that is less than $100 for something that will last decades and serve a dozen different purposes. Compare that to buying specialty cleaning products, preservation supplies, and health items separately. Vinegar does it all for a fraction of the cost. The key is to buy now before prices climb even higher. This is one of those items that is not flashy, so preppers ignore it. But when you are in a real situation, you will be thanking yourself for stocking up. Food number 9 is dried lentils. Number 9 is a food that has tripled in price in some areas, but if you know where to look, you can still get it cheap. Dried lentils. Here's what happened. Lentils used to be the cheapest protein source you could find. 5 years ago, a 5-pound bag was about $4. Today, that same bag is $12 to $15 at most grocery stores. That is triple. The reason is that global demand has exploded. Lentils are a staple in India, the Middle East, and now increasingly in Western countries, as people look for plant-based protein. Droughts in major growing regions have also hit supply. Despite the price increase, lentils are still one of the best survival foods. They cook faster than beans, about 20 to 30 minutes with no soaking required. They pack about 18 grams of protein per cup cooked, plus fiber, iron, and folate, and they are incredibly versatile. You can make soups, stews, curries, or even grind them into flour for baking. Here's the insider move. Do not buy lentils at regular grocery stores. Go to Indian or Middle Eastern markets. I found 10-pound bags of lentils at an Indian market for $10. That is $1 per pound compared to $3 per pound at the grocery store. Same product, 1/3 the price. The storage is simple. Keep lentils in airtight containers or mylar bags. They last for years. Some sources say 10 years or more when stored with oxygen absorbers. I keep about 100 pounds in my stockpile, organized by type. Red lentils for fast cooking, green lentils for soups, and black lentils for curries. Here's a survival hack. Lentils are one of the easiest foods to sprout. Soak them overnight, drain, and let them sit in a jar. In 2 days, you've got fresh sprouts packed with vitamins. This is critical in a long-term scenario where fresh vegetables are unavailable. The fact that you can still find cheap lentils if you know where to shop is a huge advantage. But the window is closing. As more preppers catch on, even the ethnic markets will raise prices. Stock up now while you still can. Food number 10 is salt in bulk. Number 10 is the most overlooked survival essential, and the price has quietly doubled. Salt, but not just table salt. I am talking about bulk salt in 25 or 50-pound bags. Here is what people do not understand. Salt is not just for flavor. It is a preservation method, a nutrient, and a trade commodity. Throughout history, salt has been so valuable that wars were fought over it and people were paid in salt. That is where the word salary comes from. The price of bulk salt has gone up significantly. 5 years ago, a 50-pound bag of salt cost about $8. Now, that same bag is $18 to $20. That is more than double. And as supply chain issues continue, it is likely to go higher. Here is why you need bulk salt. First, food preservation. You can salt meat, fish, and vegetables to extend their shelf life for months or years. This is critical in a grid-down situation where refrigeration is not available. Second, mineral intake. Your body needs sodium to function. In a survival situation where you are physically active, you will sweat out salt and need to replace it. Third, trade value. Salt is one of those universal items that everyone needs. In a collapse scenario, it becomes barter gold. The shelf life of salt is literally forever. It is a mineral. It does not spoil, it does not degrade, it just sits there waiting. I have salt in my stockpile that is 6 years old, and it is identical to the day I bought it. Here's my storage method. I keep bulk salt in the original bags inside 5-gallon buckets with tight lids. This keeps moisture out and prevents clumping. I have 4 50-pound bags stored, which is 200 pounds total. Even at today's prices, that is less than $80 for something that will last forever and serve multiple critical purposes. Compare that to buying those expensive Himalayan salt lamps or gourmet sea salt at $10 for a few ounces. Bulk plain salt does everything you need for survival at a fraction of the cost. The key is to buy from farm supply stores or pool supply stores where they sell salt in bulk for water softeners or livestock. That is where you get the best prices. Food number 11 is oats in bulk. All right, number 11 is the final food, and it is one that has been quietly increasing in price while remaining one of the best survival foods you can stockpile. Oats, specifically whole oat groats or steel-cut oats bought in bulk. Here is what is happening. A few years ago, you could buy a 25-pound bag of oats for about $15. Now, that same bag is $30 to $35. That is double, and the trend is continuing upward as grain prices rise globally. But even at the higher price, oats are still an incredible value. They are packed with fiber, protein, and slow-burning carbs that keep you full for hours. One serving of oats provides sustained energy without the crash you get from simple carbs. Here is why oats are perfect for prepping. They are incredibly versatile. You can make oatmeal, granola, grind them into flour for baking, use them in soups as a thickener, or even ferment them into a traditional drink. The shelf life is excellent. Whole oat groats, when stored in airtight containers with oxygen absorbers, last 10 to 30 years. Steel-cut oats last about 5 years. Even rolled oats, which are more processed, last 2 to 3 years. I keep about 150 pounds of oats in my stockpile, mostly whole groats for maximum shelf life. Even at $35 per 25-pound bag, that is about $200 total for food that will feed my family for months and last for decades. Compare that to instant oatmeal packets at the grocery store, which cost $5 for 8 servings. The math is not even close. Here's a survival tip. Oats are one of the easiest grains to digest, which is important in high-stress situations where your digestive system might be compromised. They're also naturally gluten-free if you buy certified gluten-free oats, which matters if someone in your family has celiac disease. The best place to buy bulk oats is from farm co-ops, bulk food stores, or online from grain suppliers. Avoid buying from regular grocery stores where you are paying double for smaller quantities. while other preppers are spending hundreds on freeze-dried breakfast meals. I've got years of hearty, nutritious oats stored for a fraction of the cost. Look, here's the bottom line. Every single one of these 11 foods has doubled in price, and the trend is not stopping. But even at today's higher prices, they are still a fraction of the cost of commercial survival food. The key is to act now before prices climb even higher and before these items start disappearing from shelves. I have given you the roadmap. You now know what to buy, where to find it cheap, and how to store it properly. If this video gave you some new ideas, hit that like button. Subscribe for more real-world survival strategies that actually save you money. And drop a comment telling me which of these 11 foods you are stocking up on first. Next week, I am revealing the biggest scams in the prepping industry and how to avoid wasting your money. You do not want to miss that one.